With Cam Ward looking like an NFL caliber quarterback in practice so far at Miami and the receivers showing growth, is it time for the Hurricanes to go vertical in 2024?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We made it. I'm Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet and writer for allhurricanes.com. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today, we are going to talk some recruiting, because we're going to put our guest on the spot as to who he thinks are going to be the three top-rated recruits in Miami's class of 2025. We're definitely going to talk about the quarterback pecking order at Miami, but I want to start on Miami's offense, and let's introduce our guest today, Gio Milian, who does an awesome job with LifeWallet Sports. I had the privilege of joining Gio's Wednesday show a couple of days ago, so I begged him to return the favor, and he was able to carve out some time for me. Gio, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Happy Friday. Week's almost over. It's almost the weekend. We're just right under a week away from the spring game as well for Canes football. So exciting times. Recruiting is heating up. Big visit weekend last weekend, again this weekend. They're gearing up for the spring game to be pretty big itself. So excited to talk about everything that's going on. Everything is starting to ramp up now.
Yeah, and I see so many plays when I'm out at practice, so many plays being made by the offense. Now, I'm not saying the offense is ahead of the defense, but like usually this time of year, Gio, especially historically at Miami, the defenses are usually way ahead of the offense. But I see like a lot of times it seems 50-50. There's some practices where the offense seems to win the day. There wasn't media viewing on Thursday, but my understanding was the defense probably won the day on Thursday. From what I heard coming out of that practice, there were some VIPs out there watching, but it definitely does feel like with Miami having some veteran receivers, Xavier Restrepo is coming off a 1,000-yard season. He's back for this year. Jacoby George had an excellent year. I see Isaiah Horton stepping up. We talk about the young guys, the JoJo Traders, the Ray Rays, the Nikars. And then, of course, you've got Cam Ward at quarterback. So we think about Miami having an offensive coordinator who comes from an air raid tree. And Miami's offense did dramatically improve statistically from 2022 to 2023. But people thought there was a lot of meat left on the bone last year, Gio, and too many interceptions, maybe too conservative. How much do you think that's going to change now with second year of Shannon Dawson, but most importantly, Cam Ward now being the guy running that Dawson offense? What are you expecting this year?
So I think first, off the top of everything, continuity in terms of guys returning back with these same coordinators. It's been a while since this has happened at Miami. First time in Mario Cristobal's tenure here at Miami that he's having his offensive and defensive coordinators coming back for his second year. That's going to help some guys grow, especially just in terms of being comfortable with the entire scheme and what they're asked of to do on the field. Now, in terms of Cam Ward, I know people have the question marks about the fumbles that he had at Washington State and whatnot. Is some of that attributed to the grade of the offensive line that he had at Washington State compared to Miami? Yes, some of it his own. In terms of throwing interceptions, though, he's, at least throughout his career, if you're talking about from the point he was at Incarnate Word to Washington State, very efficient, rarely turned over the ball. I do expect, at least with Cam Ward being the guy this year, I think Miami's going to have a little bit more of a threat in the red zone from a quarterback perspective. And the reason why I say this is not so much just how accurate he is and his ball placement and, just even talking about the deep balls that he's really thrown very well throughout spring, just speaking to guys that have been at the longer portions of practice. But his running game, like in terms of being a dual threat quarterback, he's not your Michael Vick or Lamar Jackson of dual threat quarterbacks, but very viable runner. especially in the red zone. That's where he's gotten the bulk of his touchdowns as a runner. So I think that's going to add another component to Miami's offense that really we haven't seen since Malik Rozier was the quarterback for the Canes.
Could you look at something like 40 points per game? Could that be realistic this year, especially thinking that I think Miami's got a more favorable schedule than they had a year ago?
I think it depends in terms of the tempo. If Miami's going to go very much hurry up with Cam Ward at the helm, then yeah, I think that's realistic. I know Miami last season, they averaged just about 31.5 points per game throughout all 13 games, if you put it all together. I think a nice step up from there would be maybe 36, that 36 to 37 range. 40 would be great. I think if they're scoring 40 points per game, you're talking about a true playoff contender.
Gio Milian from LifeWallet Sports is with us. Now, Gio, we spoke with Mario Cristobal yesterday after practice, and it sounded to me like he dropped a massive hint as to how the rest of the quarterback room has been looking, right? And he talked about Ward being the guy who's earned the starters reps. So I don't think there's any question Cam Ward is Miami's top quarterback. But then he talked about the guys who are on Ward's heels. He mentioned Emory Williams. He mentioned Reese Poffenbarger, and he seemed to put Ja'Carri Brown kind of in the tier below that. He was complimentary of Ja'Carri, but like he clearly said, Emory Williams and Reese Poffenbarger are the guys that are on Ward's heels. Is that kind of the same sense that you're getting on the way that this is playing out? And well, let's be frank here. I think we all think it's unlikely Miami's going to keep 5 scholarship quarterbacks heading into the 2024 season. Do you think someone may hit the portal coming up next or later this month?
I think you hit it right on in terms of having all 5 of those quarterbacks on the roster, especially with the landscape of college football now, with the transfer portal, and now the one-time freebie is no longer a thing. Now you can transfer multiple times. So I think it would be very difficult to keep that amount of quarterbacks on one roster, especially guys that have had starts under their belt already in college football. They're biting at the bit to get on the field. And I know Ja'Carri Brown would love to be on the field. I had a conversation with him, actually. This is about 2 springs ago when he had first arrived. He had a conversation with Bernie Kosar, and Bernie Kosar was telling him, I can see it, that look in your eyes that you want to get on the field, but you got to be patient. You got to learn. You got to prep. You got to get in the film room. And he understood it and took it in stride at the time. But fast forward 2 years now, your clock starts ticking on your career, and you want to get on the field. You want to put some tape up and your hopes and aspirations of getting to the league. Now, in terms of the entire pecking order, I think you and me have both spoken on this, that it seems like there's been sort of a wave in terms of the guys that are flashing behind Cam Ward, where you see this scenario where just this past week, it was Emory Williams who really shined of the backup guys in the second scrimmage last Saturday. And then the prior week, you had Ja'Carri Brown showing flashes. And then even before that, Reese Poffenbarger. Now, I know internally there was, if people recall the podcast that Ja'Carri Brown showed up on right before spring, and there was some certain comments made. Some people internally at Miami were not too happy about that, and there was certain feelings about that. But Ja'Carri Brown, I think he has a tremendous ceiling, maybe even the highest ceiling of the 3 main backup guys behind Cam Ward right now. But experience matters too, and in terms of outside of that alone, you need the factor of consistency too. And I think that's something that Reese Poffenbarger really brings to the table. And I think that was one of the main reasons why he was brought in, to kind of elevate the floor heading into next spring post Cam Ward. So, yeah, it's very likely someone ends up transferring after the spring. There's no way that it stays status quo.
You want to keep it locked here on this episode of Locked On Canes, because I am going to put Gio on the hot seat a little bit later, because one of our listeners actually wants him to tell us who he thinks Miami's top ranked commits are going to be in the class of 2025. At least one of those names may surprise you from my understanding. And I want to talk when we come back about the TreVonte Citizen factor, because I think he could be one of the biggest X factors on this team. So, my friends, we got Gio Milian with us. You want to keep it locked right here on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on that 3% match. Robinhood gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SPIC, is a registered broker-dealer. Thank you so much for making this Friday episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. Alex Donno alongside Gio Milian from LifeWallet Sports. So Gio, people love, as I do as well, talking about TreVonte Citizen, who hasn't taken a college snap yet, has missed his first 2 full years with that knee injury and setback. And Mario Cristobal spoke very highly. It was last Thursday. He also brought it up again this week about something kind of clicking recently for Citizen. I think getting some of that confidence back after, the long injury layoff. I don't know. I can't speak exactly for how far away he is of getting back to the guy he was coming out of high school. What are you hearing? And how much of a factor do you think Citizen can be in the backfield this year?
So we'll date this back to his arrival at Miami. Gruesome injury that he had, that first fall scrimmage. Very, very, very tough in terms of for the coaching staff and him. Coaching staff, reason why is they expected him to have a pretty sizable role his true freshman season, and that just kind of went out the window. Fast forward to last year, 2023. The timetable I was hearing at the time was they were hoping to get him back full running at speed and everything, and hopefully getting carries on the field in November. Didn't exactly work out that way. We did see him suited up in November on the sidelines. No snaps yet. This spring has been a very golden opportunity for him because you look at the situation where you have Henry Parrish that went off to the transfer portal, Mark Fletcher, who his injury could last much longer than what's being led on to. He might be out an extended period of time, even that goes into the season too. So it's still very much up in the air. AJ Allen resting up this spring. So again, golden opportunity. Yes, I've heard that he is making strides. A lot of it comes down to the confidence and can he trust that knee? If he's okay to run on it, to make cuts, to do everything a running back is expected to do at a high level. I know there's been a lot of talk about Chris Johnson with the flashy plays and everything, but I know at least from a philosophical standpoint with Mario Cristobal, he does like to have that big back that you usually see in the NFL as 6'1", 6'2", 215, 220 pounds that can take a pounding, take 20-something carries a game. Miami's going to need a guy like that if Mark Fletcher is going to miss time when the season starts. So I've heard good early returns, but again, we've seen this before. Scenarios like, for example, last year, Elijah Arroyo, the coaching staff they were pretty much confident that he was going to be good to go. And unfortunately, he had setbacks. So it happens. So I'm kind of cautious with it. If he stays healthy, yes, I think right out the gate, you could see him getting meaningful carries, especially, I mean, you got Don Chaney gone and Henry Parrish gone. And then Mark Fletcher, his status is kind of up in the air for game one.
Now, with what you say about Fletcher, I'm going to revisit a question that a listener asked me yesterday. if I think Miami's leading rusher next year could be a guy who's not on the roster right now. And my answer was, assuming Fletcher's healthy, my answer is no, it's Fletcher. But then you talk about, there could be some time missed by Mark Fletcher. So do you think running back is a position Miami's going to address in the portal? But then I also wonder, like, who we don't know who's going to be available come April 15th in the portal. Like, are you going to get a guy who was as good or better than Henry Parrish was? I'm not sure if you can.
I know from Miami's side of things, they are pretty confident that they can get someone in the spring transfer portal window, which will begin April 16th, the very first day of when the portal opens back up again. You got about a 15-day window for guys to get in. And then after that, or even before that, guys could make their decisions where they want to go. Miami has a silent confidence about it that they can get someone that would be worthwhile to have in the room in terms of that running back by committee that they like to use. They like to keep guys fresh with their legs, not try to burn everyone out. I think they will be fine. In terms of portal, though, I do think they really do have to attack the cornerback position. I think they have talent near the top, but they got to build more depth.
Well, and then another position that they seem to be attacking, which puzzles some people, but I can understand kind of the method to the madness here, is so you got Romello Height is visiting this weekend. And I know a lot of Miami fans feel a certain way about Romello Height because, National Signing Day for the class of 2020, for 2020, I should say, he left Miami at the altar. He flipped to Auburn. He actually ended up transferring from Auburn to USC. He recorded 4 sacks and 21 tackles last year at USA. I think this is like not a game changer necessarily, but a fine player, could be a rotational veteran. A lot of Miami fans, they just don't like, what he did coming out of high school to Miami. I think get over it. It was a different coaching staff. I'm not that concerned about that stuff. But the other part of it is people wonder, hey, we've got so many edge rushers. Like, why do we need this guy? There is a lot of youth at edge rusher, and you talk about players whose statuses are up in the air with injury. Nigel Kelly is someone I'm not sure exactly when we're going to see him again. So do you think adding someone like a Romello Height makes sense, even with the limited spots?
Yeah, so just to touch on a subject, in terms of the injuries, I know some guys like Nigel Kelly, they're expected to be full go for fall. I know as soon as people see the Romello Height news, which has been brewing for some time now, they automatically think, oh, someone's going to leave, or that naturally people do leave over time. It's just the natural progression of how college football is now. Sometimes some upperclassmen, they get passed by underclassmen and whatnot. I look at Romello Height as a potential addition, and maybe not so much potential because they really would like to add him to the room. I look at him in the mold of very similar to like a Mitchell Agude, who Mario Cristobal had first brought in through the transfer portal when he first arrived here. So solid depth guy. He'll get in the rotation. He might give you 4 or 5 sacks during the season, 20 plus tackles, very similar to like what he did at USC, which I think people don't give enough credit what that means in terms of games spread out through a season that can help you.
Well, here's the way that I look at it. It's like, okay, he had 4 sacks, and some people say 4 sacks, but okay, like Miami's 2 sack leaders last year had 7.5 apiece, right? And that was, Ruben Bain and Kiko especially played a ton of snaps, right? So if you're talking about a rotational guy who could maybe give you 4 sacks this year, I'll take it.
Yeah, no, and I understand why some Miami fans might be upset, because the way the original story goes, Romello, when he was committed to Miami, and we're talking about a totally different staff, which I like that you brought that up, Donno, that you can't compare it. It's 2 totally different coaching staffs. Everyone has their views and opinions of how things were under Manny Diaz compared to Mario Cristobal. But story goes was that he took a last-minute visit to Auburn, and Miami fans were going nuts, and then he tweeted out a picture with his feet up, I think on an ottoman or something in a house, saying, no, everything's all good. So I think for him to correct history in the course, he has to redo that picture, but in a commitment to the University of Miami.
I like that.
I think that's how everything will all make sense, and everything will be all okay in terms of the Canes universe.
I love it. Well, we'll go from transfer portal to 2025 recruiting when we come back. I'm going to put Gio on the spot as to who, if there could be any surprise commits, but who the top 3 ranked commits are going to be in Miami's upcoming class of 2025. So you want to keep it locked right here. We got Gio Milian from LifeWallet Sports with us on this brand new Friday episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, if you're looking to buy tickets, especially last-minute tickets to sporting events, I'm telling you, the Game Time app will change your life. And the best deals often come at the last minute, but I'm even looking a week in advance. You can get $8 tickets to next Friday's Marlins home game against the Atlanta Braves. Think about that. $8 tickets. I'm looking at $42 tickets to Miami Heat games. And folks, Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. And it's not just MLB. It's not just sports. I got my wife tickets to Hamilton a couple of weeks ago at a great deal. Disney on Ice we've gone to with my son before. Last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. Folks, you can save even more with the exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. One of my favorite things about Game Time is the all-in pricing. You know exactly what the fees are going to be up front. They don't tack them on at the end to like fool you with a bait and switch, nothing like that. The Game Time guarantee means Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. Folks, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's a deal. If you get those $8 Marlins tickets, you'll have money left over after you take $20 off. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you so much for making this Friday episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. If you're an everydayer, you want to take that everydayer experience to the next level, sign up for our Locked On Canes Insiders chat. I include the link in the show description below. You get text messages directly from my phone to yours and vice versa. One-on-one questions. We're going to ask Gio one of your questions in a couple of minutes. We give you guys practice updates, breaking news, recruiting scoops. Try it free for 14 days. Click that link below. Become a Locked On Canes Insider. Try it free for 14 days. Then if you like it, $4.99 a month. We give you a lot of added value on there on Locked On Canes Insiders. So, Gio, I know you cover recruiting extensively as well. And we got a question from our Insiders chat. He says, question for Gio. Who do you think will be the 3 highest ranked recruits in Miami's upcoming class of 2025?
I think that's a great question because you look at progressively from Mario Cristobal's first true recruiting class. I'm not talking about the transition class where some guys were Manny Diaz's guys and some guys that Mario brought in like literally within 2 weeks' time. So from 2023, you had 2 5-star offensive linemen between Francis Mauignola and Samson Okunlola. Then 2024, you get 3 5-star defensive linemen, which is a big deal. Marquise Lightfoot, Armando Blunt, and Justin Scott. Now, 2025, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Miami is putting the emphasis this year on the defensive back position. They are really going all in, just like they did with the defensive line last year. They are dead set on having the best defensive back class in the country, just similar to like they did with the defensive line and then offensive line before that. That's their idea this year. And look, so far, they've done what they've set out to do. So, first up, even though there's going to be a lot of competition with Oregon and LSU still in there, not so much with LSU, at least what I've heard recently, but 5-star defensive back DJ Pickett from Zephyr Hills, Florida. Look, he's near the top of the board for Miami. Miami has done a consistent job in terms of recruiting him. He just recently met with the new cornerbacks coach Chevis Jackson. All went well. family ties involved there. Not necessarily does that always mean it's a 100% lock that a recruit's coming to that school, but everything that I have been told to this point, Miami is on the right trajectory in terms of that recruitment. In terms of any 5-star they're going after right now, I think they have a great shot in terms of landing DJ Pickett. He's someone that I could see being in Miami's class as a realistic possibility. So that's not even the surprise. I've mentioned this name quite a few times on the X Spaces when I've talked about recruiting, and I've kept on reminding people, look, watch out. Miami's still recruiting this guy. They're still recruiting this guy. 5-star offensive lineman Solomon Thomas.
I like it.
From Jacksonville Rains High School. If that high school sounds familiar, same high school that Michael Pinckney, former Miami Hurricanes linebacker, went to. Miami's done a tremendous job in terms of staying in that recruitment. They've been recruiting him for this. It's not just this cycle. They've been recruiting him since well over a year ago. That relationship is a long-standing one. Some people in the building were kind of surprised when he committed to Florida State. I know the relationship is really great between him and Mario Cristobal and him and Alex Mirabal. They've taken, especially Mario, he's taken a more personal, hands-on approach with that recruitment. He's someone that I've already been on record saying before, and I'll say again, I could see him flipping to Miami. And I'm usually a little careful, and I tread carefully on these type of waters about guys flipping and whatnot. He's someone that I could see flipping out of Florida State's class into Miami's class at the end of the cycle. Or maybe
another Armando Blunt.
Yes. So the third one would be kind of tricky because Miami's recruiting a lot of big-time guys. And actually, they're ahead of the game this year compared to last year. They're getting a lot of these guys in for spring visits. They have a ton of official visits scheduled already as it is. They're trying to nail down more with some of these guys. But if I nail it down to one out of talking about 4 different names I had in mind in terms of the third guy, but who I think is the most likely of those, Dallas Wilson, 5-star wide receiver from the Tampa, Florida area. Oregon commit right now. The narrative in terms of his recruitment has really changed, at least I would say within the past 2 months. 2 months ago, I was told from people really close to that they're like, yeah, no, I don't really see him backing off of Oregon. And then the tune has progressively changed since he's taken multiple visits to Miami. I actually see Miami flipping him too from Oregon. As long as Miami does what they need to do on the field, they're on the right track in terms of being the most likely in-state school to land him. And just for good measure here, if anyone's wondering the other names that I had in mind that I think Miami's in a good spot with at this point, Elias Williams, who's a 5-star committed to the University of Georgia, kind of a two-way athlete, can play defensive end or tight end at the next level. I'm not entirely ready yet to say that I think Miami's got a great chance to flip him, but I have mentioned they're very much in that one. He's going to be taking a visit here soon. Yosei Epinesa, who is the younger brother of AJ Epinesa, who plays for the Buffalo Bills, defensive end. Yosei is a defensive end himself, another 5-star. Kind of shaping up to be a battle between Miami and Iowa and a few SEC powers in there as well. But Iowa legacy, but Miami has gotten over that hump before. And last one I'll mention here, another guy who's going to be back on campus this weekend, Zayden Walker, 5-star linebacker from the state of Georgia. He's taken a ton of visits to Miami. He's shaping up to be a Miami-Georgia battle. I know Auburn is trying to get in there as well, but Miami's done a pretty good job in terms of recruiting him. And one of their current linebackers that's committed right now has a great relationship with Zayden Walker as well. They talk just about daily, so.
I like that. Gio Milian dropping some nuggets on possible flips. Merry Flipmas is going to be coming up this December again, I think. Gio, thank you so much for taking the time. Make sure you follow him on X at Gio Milian and let people know when they can catch your awesome Wednesday show. I've been privileged to be a guest on it a few times. What do you got coming up next week and when can people catch it?
Yes. So most of the time I run the main X Space, usually on Wednesdays at noon Eastern time. Lately, little shifts and changes here and there, sometimes a Thursday or Friday because of some things with practice and whatnot.
Right.
Next week, though, it's going to be a space on Friday at noon, recorded live. And I highly suggest people to tune into that because it's going to be a very, very special one with some very nice guests. I don't want to give away too much right now, but I think people will really enjoy that.
I love that. Well, make sure you guys check that out. And he is Mr. Spaces, Gio Milian. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today on this Friday. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button, smash that thumbs up. If you're listening to the audio version, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of the 1,000 podcast apps out there, wherever you get your podcasts. We will talk to you again, maybe over the weekend. I don't know if I could take 2 days off with all that's going on. We'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.